An underwater drone just descended nearly 5,000 meters into the Atlantic and found something no one expected. Resting in eerie silence, the wreck of the Bismarck appeared not destroyed, but preserved. Then came the shock: a sealed chamber, faint heat signatures, and a low-frequency pulse. After 80 years, the legendary Nazi battleship is still broadcasting secrets from the deep. What the drone uncovered has shaken naval historians and reopened the mystery of how the Bismarck really met its end. The shocking first glimpse: drone meets Bismarck. A next-generation underwater drone descended into the North Atlantic, targeting one of World War II's most infamous wrecks, the German battleship Bismarck. Resting at a depth of 4,790 meters, the mission aimed to revisit the site with modern tech, hoping to capture footage no one had seen in decades. As the drone dropped through the freezing black water, its floodlights ignited the darkness. Then, out of nowhere, a massive steel outline appeared. What it revealed left the crew completely stunned. The Bismarck's hull was upright, mostly intact. This wasn't the shattered wreck described in wartime reports. Its superstructure, turrets, and primary armor belt were all clearly visible. The drone swept past twisted beams, scorched plating, and silent remnants of the ship's final battle. But the overall condition felt more preserved than destroyed. Experts watching the live feed were speechless. This was a ghost ship, not a broken ruin. "It's like she refused to break," said one of the engineers, barely audible. The armor plating, known to be some of the thickest ever installed on a warship, still held firm. It was as if the Bismarck was defying the narrative history had written for her. The silence among the observers wasn't just awe, it was confusion. The condition of the wreck contradicted long-held beliefs about how the ship met its end. Instead of being blown apart by British naval fire, the drone showed something different. A warship that seemed to have sunk with its core structure mostly intact. As the footage continued, the camera panned over the debris field scattered across the seabed. Crushed lifeboats, tangled metal, and shattered gun barrels all lay motionless. But the central structure, the heart of the ship, remained strong. The discovery suggested that the final moments of the Bismarck may have unfolded differently than previously thought. This first encounter raised new questions. What really sank the Bismarck? Was it external fire, internal sabotage, or something else entirely? As the drone hovered over steel that hadn't seen daylight in over 80 years, the mission took on a new purpose, not just to document, but to understand. Deep ocean hostility, the graveyard of giants. Nearly 3 miles below the surface, the Bismarck lies in a part of the ocean where few machines, and no humans, can survive unassisted. The pressure at this depth exceeds 6,000 pounds per square inch, more than enough to crush most submarines and all but the most specialized technology. The drone sent to explore this watery graveyard was built specifically to endure the crushing weight, zero light, and corrosive cold of the deep ocean. As its sonar mapped the surroundings, what it uncovered was both eerie and mesmerizing. The Bismarck sits on the slope of an extinct underwater volcano, its bow angled slightly upward. The ship is half buried in hardened lava sediment, wedged into a geological formation shaped millions of years before the ship ever existed. Around it lies a chaotic field of debris, shattered plating, collapsed sections of the superstructure, and twisted metal remains of equipment torn loose during its violent descent. There is no natural light here. Visibility depends entirely on the drone's lights, which sweep slowly over the wreck like stage spotlights. The ship's immense guns appear to point at nothing, frozen mid-battle. There is no current, no marine life, no motion. Even bacteria decompose at a crawl. It's a kind of underwater vacuum, a sealed time capsule untouched for decades. Oceanographers call these depths the abyssal plain, a vast, mostly lifeless seabed broken only by ancient volcanic formations and shipwrecks. One explorer described it as the graveyard of giants, where the ocean entombs the world's largest lost machines in eternal silence. The extreme isolation here has preserved the Bismarck in ways shallow wrecks never experience. Without wave action or scavengers, many components remain in place, exactly as they were the day the ship went under. The environment is so hostile that it acts as a natural museum, sealing history in steel and salt. What makes the footage from this mission so compelling is how it contrasts with our expectations. We imagine the Bismarck as pulverized wreckage. Instead, the deep ocean has kept it eerily intact. As the drone pressed onward, the haunting stillness surrounding the wreck gave way to the next question. Who was this warship, and why does it still command awe today? The graveyard of giants. Who was the Bismarck, the legend before the wreck? Before it was wreckage, the Bismarck was fear itself. Commissioned in 1940, it was Nazi Germany's answer to Allied naval dominance. A floating fortress designed to disrupt supply lines and destroy British convoys. At full displacement, it weighed over 50,000 tons and was armed with 8 15-inch naval guns, some of the largest ever mounted on a ship. Its construction pushed the limits of naval engineering. It was shielded with 13-inch thick armor and powered by engines capable of moving the massive hull at over 30 knots. But beyond numbers, the Bismarck symbolized a psychological threat. It was intended to terrorize the Atlantic, severing the lifeline between the United States and Britain. In May 1941, Bismarck went on its first and only combat mission, Operation Rheinübung. Just days into the voyage, it engaged with the Royal Navy's HMS Hood, the pride of the British fleet. In a single devastating salvo, the Bismarck exploded the Hood's ammunition magazine, sinking the ship in minutes and killing more than 1,400 men. It was one of the darkest moments in British naval history. But this victory marked the beginning of the end. Britain launched one of the largest naval hunts in history. For days, warships and aircraft tracked the Bismarck, eventually crippling its steering with torpedoes from Swordfish biplanes. On May 27, 1941, British battleships Rodney and King George V closed in. They pummeled the Bismarck for over an hour until it finally slipped beneath the waves. What caused it to sink, enemy fire or scuttling by its own crew, has been debated ever since. Survivors claim they blew internal valves to prevent capture. British accounts insist they sank her with overwhelming force. The drone footage now offers new insight. But to understand what truly happened in Bismarck's final moments, we need to go back to the first time anyone saw her again. After decades lost in the deep, she was built to terrify the Atlantic. Ballard's discovery, Bismarck unearthed in the abyss. In June 1989, legendary ocean explorer Dr. Robert Ballard, famous for discovering the Titanic, turned his attention to another lost giant, the German battleship Bismarck. Using advanced sonar mapping and remotely operated vehicles around ROVs, Ballard's team spent days sweeping the North Atlantic seabed in precise grid patterns. Then, a massive shape appeared on the sonar screen. There was no doubt. Bismarck had been found. The wreck rested 2/3 down the slope of an ancient undersea volcano, a detail that immediately mattered. When the cameras went down, they revealed something shocking. The hull was upright, largely in one piece. The ship had not exploded or shattered. Even more surprising, the 13-inch armored belt showed no major breaches. This directly contradicted decades of belief that British shell fire had blown the ship apart. The ship's position told another story. Bismarck had not fallen straight down. It had slid down the volcanic slope, scraping and grinding against rock before coming to rest. Scarring on the lower hull matched impact damage, not implosion. Despite the violence of the descent, the ship's core structure survived. Ballard realized the implications immediately. "It wasn't what we expected," he said. The wreck was telling a different story. What he found didn't close the case, it reopened it. And to go further, someone would have to see the wreck up close. Alvin's descent. Human eyes inside the machine. To move beyond cameras and sonar, Ballard's team deployed Alvin, a manned deep-sea submersible capable of reaching 4,790 meters. For the crew inside, the descent into the abyss was slow and tense. Hours passed in total darkness before the floodlights revealed the enormous form of the Bismarck rising from the seabed. This was not just a wreck. It felt like a preserved battlefield. As Alvin circled the ship, the damage became clearer. The superstructure was shredded, upper decks were torn apart by heavy gunfire, and jagged holes scarred the steel. But when the crew examined the most critical area, the armored belt below the waterline, they saw something unexpected. It was largely intact. British shells had devastated the top, but they had not broken the ship's spine. The massive 15-inch gun turrets still sat in place, aimed skyward. Below decks, however, conditions were different. Entire sections were compressed and buckled, consistent with internal flooding and impact stress, not explosive penetration. This raised a disturbing possibility. The ship may have been sunk from within. Alvin allowed researchers to measure plating, map collapse patterns, and confirm what Ballard suspected. The outer armor held, while the inside failed. One crew member said quietly, "You feel like you're visiting a battlefield frozen in time." Bismarck was no longer just a wreck. It was a forensic puzzle, and the mystery was far from over. James Cameron's forensic expedition. In 2002, filmmaker and deep-sea explorer James Cameron turned his attention to the Bismarck. Known for his Titanic dives, Cameron aimed to bring cinematic clarity and forensic precision to one of World War II's most debated wrecks. With a fleet of modern ROVs and submersibles, equipped with 3D and imaging and high-definition cameras, he launched an expedition not just to film, but to investigate. The ROVs explored interior corridors, engine rooms, and crew quarters, capturing eerie footage of flooded chambers, collapsed bulkheads, and personal artifacts, shoes, utensils, and remnants of life on board. What truly shocked experts was the condition of the lower decks. They weren't blasted apart. They were crushed downward, showing signs of internal collapse, not shell fire. Cameron also inspected the armor belt, which once again showed minimal penetration. The damage was superficial, with dents and pockmarks, but the vital areas were untouched. The evidence supported earlier theories. The ship didn't fail from outside firepower alone. "She died hard, not from being torn open, but from the inside," Cameron said. His findings reinforced what Ballard and Alvin had already hinted. The mystery deepened. Was it British guns or a crew's final decision that sealed the Bismarck's fate? Evidence that shook history. The drone footage and submersible data began to reveal something few had expected. The real damage to the Bismarck may have come after the battle, not during it. Detailed scans of the hull showed long vertical tears in the plating, primarily below the armor belt. At first, these were assumed to be from torpedoes, but engineers noticed something unusual. The patterns didn't match typical blast damage. Instead, the tears followed stress lines, consistent with massive pressure from internal flooding and impact with the ocean floor. Decks beneath the armored layer had collapsed downward, indicating the ship may have buckled under its own weight after the lower compartments filled with water. In other words, the ship may have suffered a structural implosion, not an explosive destruction. What shocked researchers even more was the absence of large shell entry points in critical areas. There were clear signs of damage on the upper decks and turrets, but very few holes in the primary armor. That didn't fit the official account of the Bismarck being pounded into submission. It fit the account of German survivors who had long claimed they scuttled the ship, deliberately flooding compartments and opening internal valves to prevent capture. As this new evidence mounted, naval historians began reconsidering long-accepted truths. If the crew did in fact scuttle the ship, that would explain the intact outer shell and the crushed internal decks. It would also mean the British didn't sink the Bismarck by force. They merely sealed her fate after she was already disabled. One historian summed it up: the ship failed not from the outside in, but from the inside out. It was a devastating conclusion, not because it diminished British efforts, but because it redefined the last stand of one of history's most powerful battleships. But just when researchers thought the mystery was solved, the drone found something even stranger: a sealed chamber that no one had ever seen before. New anomalies, sealed chambers, and signals. During a recent dive along the port side of the Bismarck, the underwater drone discovered something that hadn't appeared on any previous scans: a sealed chamber, completely intact and obscured by decades of debris and rusted steel. It was a section no expedition had ever reached, and its sudden appearance was more than a surprise. It was a shock. As the drone hovered near the unbroken bulkhead, thermal sensors detected a faint heat signature, an anomaly in a ship entombed in freezing Atlantic depths for over 80 years. More bizarre was the signal spike, a low-frequency pulse, too subtle for sonar but clearly distinct on recorded data. Technicians ruled out equipment failure. The signal returned on multiple passes. Some experts proposed that pressure changes might have triggered long-dormant systems. Others pointed to trapped gases venting through microscopic fractures. But one thing was certain: this chamber was different. Reinforced plating, manual override systems, and thicker walls marked it as critical infrastructure, possibly an emergency control room or a scuttling command station. "She's still hiding things," one engineer remarked. "This chamber could hold orders, logs, or remains. But for now, its rusted steel keeps the truth sealed tight beneath the waves." The truth beneath the waves, a legacy rewritten. The drone didn't just document wreckage, it challenged history. What it found forces a re-examination of everything we thought we knew about the Bismarck's final moments. The intact armor, the internal collapse, and the evidence of scuttling all point toward a reality that defies the traditional narrative. The British Navy did deliver the fatal blow, no question, but the Bismarck may have died on its own terms, sunk by its crew rather than captured by its enemies. The drone footage paints a picture of a war machine that endured hell, and when cornered was taken down from within. In the end, the Bismarck didn't go down in flames. It disappeared into silence. Now, 80 years later, the silence has been broken by lights, cameras, and sensors that revealed a truth deeper than water. This is no longer just a story of warfare. It's a story of pride, desperation, and the limits of steel in the face of history. As one researcher put it, "We didn't just find a ship, we found the truth, and it wasn't what anyone expected." The Bismarck still rests at the bottom of the Atlantic, upright, defiant, and preserved by darkness. A reminder that even in death, some ships still have a story left to tell. The Bismarck didn't just sink, it vanished into legend. But now technology is peeling back the ocean's silence. Each new discovery challenges the story we thought we knew. And as the sealed chamber waits to be opened, one thing is clear: the Bismarck isn't done telling its story.